Here we go. Now we're recording. We're officially recording. Thank you. So we've been learning. Good to see everyone back. I see the Bodenheimers decided to come back from their mysterious disappearance. We sent out the police, but they came back before they found them. Hopefully you had a good time. Anyway, it's good to see everyone. I want to just continue. We've been learning from a pamphlet that I came across on the ideas of Dvar, hurtful words and being sensitive to others, especially in these 3 weeks. So we're going to continue. So we're up to, in the pamphlet, what he calls Eitzah number 5. We've been going through several ideas of how to become more sensitive and more aware and more mindful of the things that may help us be more sensitive and careful before the words that come out of our mouth. Another helpful Eitzah, he writes, is to feel that Hashem is watching everything you say and do. And he says that it's being recorded, and will be a din v'chesh and everything you say and do. So it's a little bit Yireh Shamayim, you're afraid, But again, knowing that Hashem is listening and Hashem is there is certainly a mindfulness producer and gives us some pause to realize that Hashem is always there. And there are many situations we have a Yetzirah to say a sharp statement to someone, but if an important person, let's say a parent or a Rabbi or a principal, would be around, we would never say it. If we would feel that Hashem is really listening, we would always be able to control ourselves even when no one else is around. Okay, simple Eitzah. But the point that he goes on to, which I want to share with you, is that aside from the purpose of feeling that with Hashem and therefore having that consciousness of Him constantly, and therefore it'll create a certain awareness of what we're doing and hesitation before we open our mouth. But the lesson here is a more important lesson that relates to every aspect of our lives, that, we should talk to Hashem. I honestly think when I grew up, I never understood it means that you could talk to God. I mean, we knew Hashem is here, Hashem is there everywhere. I'm not sure if that song was invented when I was a kid. Maybe they invented it later. Uncle Moshe came later. But the idea that you could turn to Hashem, you can have a conversation, you can have an intimate conversation, you can, red ice the hearts, as they say, you can pour your heart out and talk to Hashem. That's something that I became much more privy to it through my involvement and my friendship with Reb Shimshon Pincus, who taught our generation to a great extent the ability to be able to talk to Hashem. And of course, the Breslov Hasidim became much more popular later on. When I grew up, the Breslov were considered crazies, and today their approach to Avos Hashem and the relationship that we have to Hashem has been revolutionary in terms of people feeling a connection to Hashem. So he goes on here. I'm just going to read a little bit, and I want to share 2 things with you. He said, this can be done, he says, by talking to Hashem as often as possible, not just 3 times a day by davening. We think that we stand before Hashem. The truth is, halavai, that at least when we daven Shemoneh Esrei, we should talk to Hashem and feel like we're talking to Him. Unfortunately, we just read what it says in the Siddur, and we don't always understand what we're saying, and that's part of the problem. Even though we can read it, translation, all that, and some of the Hebrew is pretty easy, but we don't necessarily have like a conversation with Hashem, even though that's really what it is. When you sit and when you daven, you stand lifnei hamakim, it's really I'm lifnei Hashem. But he says this can be done by talking to Hashem as often as possible. It doesn't have to be just by davening. Let it be please Hashem or thank you Hashem. Ask Hashem to help you before you do something, and then thank Him afterwards for it. It's a good idea to say at least once a day a kapitel of Tillim. He says, to just remember that idea. Please, and say, please Hashem, help me get a good mark in the test. I don't think I grew up knowing that I'm allowed to ask Hashem to help me get a good mark on the test. Please help me and all my friends to be nice to each other by recess and on the bus. Please help me cross the street safely. Please Hashem, he goes through a whole series. Again, this is written for campers, but it's very relevant to all of us. Please help Hashem, help the driver and all others around us safely so we shouldn't get into an accident. Please help me, Hashem, to buy a pair of shoes that'll fit right. What's wrong? I mean, I don't fault my parents, but it was a different relationship. I'm allowed to ask Hashem. I want to make sure I find a pair of shoes that are finally comfortable, and there's nothing wrong. It's like we have to apologize. I don't ask God for that thing. Yes, He's your Tata in heaven. He's the Tata in Shemayim. We're allowed to ask Hashem for anything. Help me buy a pair of shoes that will fit. Help me get a good-looking haircut. Yet Hashem helps you remember to thank Hashem for it and to daven that Hashem should continue to help you and Klal Yisrael and everything. Even if it didn't end the way you wanted it to, you should still thank Hashem by saying, thank you for doing what's good for me. Please continue to help me and everyone. And then he goes through a long, we'll just get it briefly. He says you could buy yourself a notebook and mark Each page is a different part of your body, of your life, your body, food, clothing, parents, each day. Find one new thing to thank Hashem for and write it on the appropriate page. Imagine your life without it, put on a smile and tell it to Hashem. He gives an example. He says, a page about our body, eyes. Thank Hashem that I can see. Unfortunately, if you know people who have impaired vision or macular degeneration, you know how valuable a sight is. And he says, one day, thank Hashem that you're able to walk down the street without a stick or a guide dog. Another day, thank Hashem you can read and look something up and read a book. Another day, thank Him that you can see different colors. Even though I'm colorblind, I don't see all of them, but most of them I see. Do the same with the rest of your body. It says page about parents. This is a good one. If there are any kids on the page listening, thank you, Hashem, to have parents. Thank you, have parents to encourage you, to comfort you, to be mechanech you, make your supper, to go to work. You can have money, you can do laundry, go shopping. And it would certainly help us get a greater appreciation. A page about food. Thank you, Hashem, for the types of food that we eat. Ice cream and Danishes and all the delicious stuff. Thank Hashem for clothing, the clothing that we're able to wear. And thank Hashem for all the people that help us, and so on and so forth. Thank Hashem for new inventions. And, imagine life without electricity. And today, imagine life without air conditioning. I think, unfortunately, in this page, except for Chaim Zuckerberg, he's just the youngest man on the page here when it comes to us. Most of us here, the Mets are here, and they're a little bit on the younger end. But most of the page on this page a little tilted to one side of the ship here. And I think many of us grew up, at least in the early stages of our life, without air conditioning. I think so. I don't know.
That's cool.
I remember getting a window unit or something, but there was no such thing as central air conditioning. And certainly when we went to camp in the summers, there was not even a havamina of, Baruch Hashem, I went to camp. I was one of the fortunate kids, but there was no havamina of air conditioning. And even air conditioning, and I learned in Eretz Yisrael in 1971, and my grandparents had tried to make Aliyah during that time. And they lived in Bnei Brak, and there was no such thing as air conditioning. No one had air conditioning. The Meir Yeshiva was a furnace. And going on buses, again, I don't want to sound like an old man, but Baruch Hashem, thank Hashem for electricity. Today, I don't know if in the neighborhood you felt it. Those little, the lights flickered, and then your neighbor, did anyone around me feel that? No? But my house has started to tinker. So I said, thank you Hashem for the air conditioning, and prayed that He would keep it going. At any rate, I want to read you a letter from Reb Pincus, and I'm going to tell you a personal story. I think I may have mentioned it, but a very short story, but a very cute story. Reb Pincus wrote a letter to someone who petitioned him, a young man who he didn't know, and he was going through a difficult time, and he had struggles and frustrations. And he tells him, he says, I see your struggles. I'm not going to read the whole letter, but he says, if you really want to accomplish and you really want to get what you need, he said, you sometimes need outside assistance. And he says, I'll give you a name and an address to which you should turn for help. The kid didn't know where he was going. And there you will find assistance at any time of the day. His name is Hashem. He is very powerful, for He created everything. I have inside information that He has a great love for you personally, and He is pining away for your call. You will have no trouble finding His address. He is everywhere, literally. Even this minute, as you're reading this letter, you can turn to Him. I write this because many people believe that God is found only through prayer, mitzvahs, and special regimens for spiritual growth. Of course, He is in all those places, but those are not the primary places to find Him. The main thing to know is that God is a real and living being with whom it is possible to form a personal relationship. No one who has tried this has ever been disappointed. This is so simple and practical, and therefore so beneficial. The key is to have a simple, personal connection in which you tell Him your problems and ask Him again and again to help you. If someone gives you different advice, it will be a pity on the effort that you expend following it. Go straight to the one who you can really help. Grab hold of Him and do not let go. Do not be silent until you have attained whatever you desire. And he signs the letter with his name. Okay, that's something. It may sound simple, but how many of us really have that? And it takes work, but he says it's easy. You just have to overcome the natural resistance to think that it's possible. And, it's not the way we were brought up, so to speak. Although, many of our Babbas used to whisper and talk to Hashem, at all times. You could see that they had a certain relationship, but for all of us, especially all of us in today's times, we need someone we can talk to, and Hashem is always there. It doesn't have to be in Shemon Esrei. You go into your room and talk to him, and whatever it is, you're standing online, whether you're on the car and you have a problem, a flat tire, whatever it is, you talk to him, and many times we see that Hashem, when it's the right time, he certainly answers. So I'm just gonna tell you a short story. My grandchildren, I'm not sure if I mentioned this, but my grandchildren, I just verified the story. I called them up before I came. Shlomi, he's 11 years old. He said, tell me the story that happened with the camera. So it seems like a year or two ago, he had a camera, maybe it was a year ago. He had a camera, a digital camera that was given to him for Hanukkah present. And he lent it to one of his younger siblings, his sister, Sarah. And she wanted to flip through the pictures. Meanwhile, he got it back, and he wanted to take more pictures, and suddenly it wasn't working. It didn't work, just push it didn't work. And he was, a 10, 11-year-old kid. It was, they live in Lakewood. They don't have, they don't have computers. They don't have all that stuff, videos. They're a very simple family. They live a very simple life, wonderful. They're not deprived, but they're happy children. But, if they get a camera, it's very special. So he was really upset. So he was getting upset. So his father says, what's the problem? It's not working. Go talk to Hashem. So his little brother, his younger brother, Nehemiah, and him, they go into a room and they're singing a certain song, Einay Mavada, or something like that. And they asked Hashem, and they said, Hashem, please help us. They came out of the room, he started using the camera, started flashing. And the kids, with that chinuch, we believe it also. But we say, they believe it, mamash, because the truth is it's emes. Hashem was there. They appealed heartfully to Hashem. And even something as simple as fixing a camera, which is not so simple for a child, it happened. And that's how they said over the story. And they lived it, and they live it. And we have to not grow up, we have to grow down and start being, simple and innocent and honest in our relation with Hashem and really believe it. Obviously, we're not going to get answers necessarily every time. Maybe we do get answers. We don't know what the right answer is. But that's something that we have to live with and implement. And again, it goes back to what we're talking about of being conscious and mindful of Hashem. Hashem is always there. We should learn to live with Hashem. If Hashem is always with us, we're certainly going to be careful how we act. We're certainly going to be mindful, not because we're afraid, but because we're going to be inspired. Hashem is, my tati is holding my hand. I'm going to act like a baby. I'm going to act like a fool. I'm going to act silly. I'm going to do something inappropriate. That's how we have to get. And that's my lesson for today. I hope everyone survived the heat. I don't know if anyone went out today even, but I hope everyone's healthy and well. And we will continue to meet each other on a daily basis. Thank you all for coming. And I thank Hashem for the wonderful friends that I have every day that we can share beautiful Divrei Torah and nice smiles from everybody. The mirroring back. Be well, all my friends, both old and young. Chaim Zuckerbrod and Zach and everyone else who's around on the corral over here. Good night.